we're still in AP, and we're talking about I wandered lonely as a cloud. Sometimes we do remember something is better than it actually was, but even if that's the case, it still serves the same purpose, right? You're because it's over, and you shape it into something it wasn't. It makes you maybe happier than even it did at the time. I've said this many a time. I don't know if you've ever, we're going to appreciate we did this someday, or we're going to, looking back on this, I think we're really going to enjoy it. It's not so much fun now, so we even know how that experience. So although it's not the question, I guess it could be number 5. What do you think? What do you think Wordsworth is telling us about our memory and our imagination?
They can enhance our past experiences.
Say that again.
They can enhance our past experiences.
So remember, one of the characteristics of romantic literature is the elevation of imagination over intellect. I think that's sort of what's happening here. He's talking about the power of nature to affect your imagination and your thoughts, because the second time is even greater. Looking back is even greater than the initial experience. And I have done that many times. In fact, sometimes I'll say, man, I can't wait till this is over, and then I can enjoy it. I can't enjoy it right now. It's too much. I remember my stomach ache, or I remember my headache, but when I remember it in the future, I won't have a headache, So that's kind of, I think, what you could say about number 5. To go back to number 3. There's a word that occurs 4 times. It's the same word, but 4 different ways. Did you notice that? I doubt if you did. I didn't the first time I read it. But there's one word, same word, used 4 different ways in the poem. Did anybody see what that word is?
Is it dance?
Yeah, tell me the evolution of that word in the poem. In other words, it starts in, where's the first one?
Fluttering, dancing in the breeze.
All right, fluttering and dancing. When is it the second time?
Tossing their heads and sprightly dance.
All right, there's a noun version of it. What about the third time?
The waves decide to dance.
All right, that's past tense. What about the last one?
Dances with the daffodils.
Well, I don't know that the tense matters all that much, but I think it's very interesting. He uses it in 4 different ways. Again, this is not something I don't think you or I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't have seen this when I read it the first time, but how does the word related to words of motion and immobility that he sees in lines 1 and 2 and 19 and 20? So 1 and 2, I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats high o'er hills and vales and hills. Then line 19 and 20, when on my couch I lie in vacant or pensive mood. How do those words, floating, wandering, lying, compare with dancing? And which of those words express happiness and which do not? See what I'm asking? Did you notice that contrast between when is he happy? When he's doing something or thinking about doing something, or when he's immobile and sitting or lying? Although there's a place for both. I think what they're saying is that the idea of motion helps him be happier. He watches them dance. He remembers them dancing as opposed to his own lying down, and so I think that's part of the technique the author uses to stress the power of nature over our imagination. This is another question I always ask whenever I do this. Would you rather go to a school, I don't know how to put this, because our school's so pretty. Would you rather go to a school that's attractive, that's neatly kept, that maybe has flowers and all that stuff, grass is cut, or one that isn't? And what difference does what the grounds look like, what difference does that make on our education? I think we go to a pretty school. It's outside, inside. What difference does it make? Couldn't we go to school any old place and there'd be trash and dirt and, broken down things? Couldn't you learn just as well there?
But trash school reflects a lack of effort from the people running the school to get a good environment.
So they're not even going to be excited about teaching you.
Yeah.
If that's a really good point. That's just a picture of maybe where the school is. And they're not doing anything in the classrooms maybe to make you truly learn. I guess the other part of this question is, what does aesthetics have to do with, why do we need aesthetics? Why do we need, I do not know anything about interior decorating. I don't think about, really, dressing guys, we're not as good as the ladies are at, dressing up. And why is that important? Why are appearances, whether it's the appearance of the school, the room, how does that enhance learning? Other than the fact that the attitude of the people that run the school, why we learn better in a pleasant atmosphere? You ever thought of that? Or worship better in a pleasant attitude? So this big question is, what do aesthetics, what does beauty, isn't that just, beauty's in the eye of the beholder? What is beauty is skin deep? Maybe it's not skin deep. Is there something deeper to beauty than just appearances? I don't care what we look like, that's not important, it's just your heart. Does the outer appearance affect the heart? You see those questions? This is the kind of thing you need to eventually develop as you read poetry. You need to be thinking critically. What are the themes here? What is he really saying? And it starts with the poem. You have to know what the poem says. And that word dances, and that's motion, and the daffodils, that's beauty. All these are themes in this book, and how important they are. Do you think beauty is important to a person? You ever thought of it? Do you want a rundown place to live in, or do you want to keep your place up and nice looking? These are not just trying to keep up with, excuse me, Elizabeth, the Joneses, you've heard the expression. We're not just trying to keep up with our neighbors and show off. There's a real tangible, I think, purpose in creating beautiful things. Anybody in here in art? I know art doesn't have to be beautiful. All right. And the same thing with poetry. Poetry doesn't have to be about beauty, but I think there is some element here that's important. Look at question 4 and 6. I'm going to leave you with the images. Images are the pictures that relate to sound, sight, smell, taste, and touch. Look at number 6. Do you see any figurative language here?
Wandering lonely as
What is that device?
well, actually, like
Well, I thought I heard somebody over here say it. Simile, yeah. It is a simile. And by the way, let's just analyze that briefly. Why is that a beautiful picture of a lonely, wandering person, a cloud? Why is that perfect comparison?
high up, kind of removed from everything.
It's remote. What's it doing? Is it going in a straight line? Is it moving decisively across the sky? It's all over the place.
It's relying on
It's being driven, just like this guy. This guy is not in charge of it. He's just wandering. Doesn't know where he's going. Cloud has in itself doesn't have any direction. It's just being driven. You see another? Anybody see another? And we've already actually talked about one.
Would continuous as the stars that shine?
What is that?
Would that also be similar?
Yeah. So what does that convey? What's continuous is the stars that shine.
The flowers,
Yes. What is it expressing about those flowers?
that they are bright.
Good. And what else? What about the continuous part?
Are there like many?
Yeah. It says they stretch a never-ending line, and then he says he saw 10,000 of them at once. You could say that's hyperbole. Who knows? How can you put a number? You're going to count them? 10,000 is a big number. What about what about the dancing? If the flowers are dancing, what literary device is that? Yes. And we already said what that does. That convey, again, have you ever seen a sad dance? Hey, we're going to have a sad dance here to finish off the prom. I mean, that's ridiculous. Have you ever seen a sad dance? Why do kids, we don't call it dancing, but they kind of do. You see kids they get up and go to the pencil sharpener, and they're jumping, they're bouncing, they're turning around. What is that typically expressed except for the fact they're tired of sitting down? What?
Happiness and joy.
Exactly.
Distraction.
That's that exactly right. So that's another thing. One of your words tomorrow is archetype. Do you recognize that word? Have you studied them yet?
Oh, yeah.
Please study them.
Architect.
You want to get started off archetype. I'm going to just double check. I know you have that word. I saw it.
Yeah, it is.
Got all the A's.
All the A's.
What is an archetype? It's an abstract or ideal concept of a type, a perfect example, an original. We're not quite ready, guys.
Does it give an example?
Yeah.
So you're like write it in a sentence?
No. It gives you,
All right, we have 5 minutes, probably 4. That clock's probably slow. But that's an example, I would say, is an archetype. The idea that most people recognize dancing as, because it's true. If they're not making dancing into something that it isn't, it really is an expression of joy. I mean, they used to call it the end zone dance, you know, and they still let them do that. But you know, it's not the funeral dance. You know, it's not the defeat dance. It's always, so that's like how an archetype works. There are other types. The Christ figure, like Billy Budd. Who did Billy Budd? Several of you did Billy Budd. And I was able to ask, does he kind of recognize a Christ figure? That's an archetype, a character that resembles some aspect of Christ. So I would like for you in the last 4 or 5 minutes, turn to page 51. Maybe it's 41. No? Go to 51. All right, tomorrow, I'm not going to ask you to do this tonight. I want you to study, and I should have had those other things ready. But I'll give you the assignment tomorrow. That'll be a week-long assignment that you'll need to be working on. I'm going to, when we come back tomorrow after the quiz, we're going to look at 2 Petrarchan sonnets by Milton. And I want you to write this down up here. I need to get rid of this. Yeah, just write it now. This is a Petrarchan sonnet as opposed to an Elizabethan or an Italian sonnet. I'm sorry, an Elizabethan or an English sonnet. This is an Italian sonnet. So if you see the term Italian, all sonnets have 14 lines, including the Petrarchan. All sonnets are serious and formal. Now you could try to be, you know, I'm sure there'd been a funny sonnet, but that's not the form. That would be a parody of the form. Sonnets are always serious. Not sad, serious, but just serious. It's not joking or poking fun at. And a sonnet has a particular rhyme scheme. Here is the rhyme scheme, and I'm going to erase this right here and leave that. All right, sonnets have a particular rhyme scheme. For an Italian sonnet or Petrarchan sonnet, the rhyme scheme is ABBA, ABBA. First, and that's called an octave. it's 8 lines, no matter what, else is different in the, they're always that way. Petrarch and sonnets always have that octave, followed by a sestet, which in the case of the one you're gonna do is CD, CD, CD. It could be CDE, CDE. I mean, they're just various variations. They're variations of this pattern. And finally, the structure of all sonnets. So if you can quickly judge that something is a sonnet, this is the organization. Question and answer. Usually the question's in the octave, the problem is in the octave, the solution or the answer is in the sestet. So that gives you a structure to the poem, and it gives you something to look for. So if you know it's a sonnet, okay, I'm looking for a problem, I'm looking for a solution. So tonight, study, I will have those, I'll just wait, I'll give it to you tomorrow, I may have enough.
Whoa, it's not that.
Yeah.